unhinged ones. It is I, Ian Hammonds. I don't really know where to begin, but you can already tell by the title of this video that I am going through a lot. This video isn't going to be full of jokes and sarcasm and camp like all of my other videos have been. So if you're looking for a lighthearted video, I suggest clicking off now. But I'm here to tell my narrative. It's been a hell of a year in all sense of the word. I got my identity stolen, I got my car stolen, I got my dog stolen all at one time, but that's a different video that I will post one day when I'm ready to talk about it. The dog that got stolen is right here, by the way. So she's fine, and I'm fine, and we're all fine. Everything's fine. But I hinted at this in my last video. My dad has cancer. And even just saying those words, like I feel like I'm dissociating. I feel like I want to scream and cry, curl up in a fetal position in my bed for like 5 days and just like not leave my house. But I have bills to pay. But I want to talk about the timeline of basically the last month, and I'm making this video not only to show my own humanity as a therapist, but to also hopefully help people out there who are going through something similar. And I even checked with my dad to see if I could actually vlog about this, and he actually said, yeah, if it'll help other people, then go for it. He was fine with me like revealing his identity. So here we go. So my dad and I live about 3 hours away from each other, and he had the same dog for probably 16 years named Trooper. Trooper was just a big old dork. He was like part Doberman, part Rottweiler, and he was just such an amazing companion for my father, who is single. Early April, my dad actually called me saying that he was going to actually have to put Trooper down. And I know that this devastated him. Like, it devastated him. Like, my dad is usually pretty stoic. I could just hear, like, when I called him and checked on him, like, his voice was cracking, like he just was really going through it with grieving this dog. I felt awful. I said, Dad, like, you are totally welcome to stay with me for a few days. Like, you can drive to Austin and stay here. And he's like, no, son, I gotta work. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm here if you need me. I'm like, I have to work too, otherwise I would come stay with you for like a week. But he had some serious grief around losing his dog, and it was very, very sudden. Like, I'm talking like almost overnight, having to take him to the vet emergency room and them basically saying like, yeah, he's not gonna live, so you can either put him down peacefully or you can let him die in a very slow and painful way. So he decided to put him down peacefully. So that happens, even though, I mean, it's a big aside, but that happens. And you know, I'm just calling to check on Dad and just making sure he's okay. Like, I'm you know, calling him, I'm texting him, making sure that he's good. He tells me that he's very busy at work, which is good, because as the life of a workaholic father and son, what's the easiest way to cope with our problems is to just throw ourselves into work. And that's exactly what happened for him. Soon after that, and I'm talking probably, I want to say maybe 2 weeks after that, Dad calls me while I'm at work. It's like a 7 or 8 session day, and I'm looking at my phone just going, my dad never calls me at like 4 o'clock, 4:30. It's usually reserve our phone calls for Sunday evening. But he calls me at like 4:30 in the afternoon one day. And it's really weird the way it happened, because he did not know this, but the 1 hour that I had free that day, somebody had just canceled. Like, I think it was a client that said like, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna have to late cancel because of an emergency, or they forgot the session or something. Like, that happens to therapists all the time. But in this particular moment, I was fairly confident that everyone this day was going to show, and one person actually forgot their session, and I was just like, fine, let me just like have this hour to myself. Hi, baby. I see my dad calling me, and I get this gut feeling in my stomach. I'm just like, oh no, what happened? As soon as I pick up, I hear beep, 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 beep. And I just immediately knew he was in the hospital. And I could hear like the chatter of nurses and doctors in the background. I could hear the TV on. I was just like, yep. So I just said, lay it on me, Dad. What's going on? My dad said that he was peeing blood. He started to pee blood late the night before, I believe. Finally, he said, I can't do this anymore. I have to go to the hospital. Mind you, my dad is a 1099 contractor, and he doesn't have insurance. So just keep that detail in mind. So basically my dad says like, yes, I'm in the hospital, I'm peeing blood. They are doing scans on my bladder and basically seeing what's going on, but they're pretty sure that it is bladder cancer. And I'm just like, okay. I'm like, I don't know too much about bladder cancer in the moment. Like, unless you're basically an oncologist, like you're not going to know immediately the entire prognosis of any kind of cancer that gets thrown your way unless you've dealt with it before. Like, I know for sure my grandma died of glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And in my grandma's case, this was probably 12 or 13 years ago. In my grandma's case, from the time that she got diagnosed with brain cancer to the time that she passed, it was about 10 months. So it was very, very quick and very aggressive. But my dad said no chemo is going to be needed, no radiation is going to be needed, thank God. And he also said that his blood work looked normal, which from an oncology perspective, that is amazing. That basically means that the cancer was only isolated to his bladder and not everywhere else in the body. It hadn't hit the bloodstream. It wasn't ravaging his immune system, and he wasn't going to need chemo or radiation basically to suppress the cancer because it was in a very, very concentrated place. And I said, all right, that's great news, Dad. What do we need to do? Like, what do we do? And he said, well, I'm actually going to stay for surgery. They're going to remove it. And I say, good. Surgery to remove a non-aggressive form of cancer is a good thing. But he says that he's going to have to come back because the tumor is so large, they can't remove it in one surgery, which I thought was a little odd. So I'm just like, okay, so are they going to send you home? And he said, yes, but I'm going to have to wear a catheter that will drain my urine from my bladder through my urethra. So for those of you who don't know what a catheter is, it's basically a pipe that they put through your pee hole. So this man had to leave the hospital with a bag attached to a catheter going through his penis because he could not pee on his own. By this point, I said, all right, I need to go visit my father. So I get to his house after probably a few days of just like rearranging clients, because when you work as a therapist in private practice, like, yes, you technically work for yourself and you technically can create your own schedule. But when you have back-to-back clients, which I recognize is a privilege, but when you have that many clients back-to-back, day-to-day, it gets really challenging to have to move everyone around. I just said I had a family emergency come up, and every single client that I messaged was completely understanding. And I thank you guys so much. I have the best clients in the world. They are the most understanding. But yes, my clients were absolutely understanding, and I'm just so freaking grateful for them. But I went down to visit my dad. I brought my dogs with me, and the catch was the very next day I was set to go to Los Angeles to go to the Crow World Festival. And if you haven't seen the video, the link is below. I had a full-blown panic attack because of all this that was basically hovering above my head. Anyway, go watch the video. But I went to see my dad, who lives, like I said, about 3 hours away from me. I had taken off that day. And I had walked into his home, and he just looked frail. Like, he looked just completely out of it. And of course, I mean, how can you not when you have a literal cancer diagnosis? But he was walking around with basically a pipe that was coming out of his pants that was hooked to a drainage bag that was full of both blood and urine. I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard to watch. It was hard to see him. Like, I was glad that I brought my dogs with me. Like, I wanted to be there with him. I got groceries for him. I picked up his meds because he wasn't able to drive. He was in like a 10 out of 10 level pain. I brought him groceries. Like, I remember being on the phone with him at like the nearest grocery store, like asking him like what he likes to eat. And so I felt good about that. I felt awful that I couldn't stay with him, but he was very reassuring and he was just like, yes, like, you know, go back home. I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. Mind you, this LA trip I had been planning since January. What was keeping me from not going, or what was keeping me from canceling the trip entirely, is that he does have a community of people that were around him that were coming to check on him. And he ended up giving me some of their numbers so that I could like just check with them, you know, and like they knew how to reach out to me just in case they went to his home and found him passed out on the bathroom floor, dark. But I basically dotted my I's and crossed my T's. I said, okay, well, if you don't need anything else, I have to go. I ended up going to LA. I actually had a really good time. But of course, when you're going through something like this, like it's really kind of hovering above your head. Could have had a great time, but instead I had a good time. And actually it was definitely a nice distraction from literally everything that I'm experiencing here in Texas right now. It was a nice distraction from work. It was a nice distraction from cancer. It was a nice distraction from being in school because at this time, my semester was over. I'm working on my PhD, by the way. But I basically come back. When I'm in LA, I'm checking in on my dad, making sure he's okay. And of course he is. But I come back and my dad calls me and he says, okay, they have rescheduled the surgery. And I said, what do you mean they've rescheduled this? Like, you need to get the rest of your tumor out of your bladder. He said, I don't know. They just rescheduled the surgery. And I'm like, okay. And this was around Memorial Day. So it was very, very hard to get a hold of someone because all the clinics were closed. All the offices were closed. So another week goes by. My dad still has a catheter. He still cannot pee by himself. He's still walking around with like a literal drainage bag that's hooked up to his penis. But they moved the surgery to June 7th, which was yesterday. Yesterday was a Friday. Since I'm so busy with clients and I also teach throughout the week until sometimes 10:30 p.m. at night, I told my dad, I can't guarantee that I will get there like early, but I will definitely drive to see you before you go in for surgery. So mind you, he lives 3 hours away from me. I am 1 hour away, which means I've already driven 2 hours. I'm exhausted, I'm sleep deprived, I am stressed out. I took the last Klonopin that I had, but I'm like, I need to be there for my dad. My dad calls me when I am an hour away and said, son, just turn back around. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he said, they are telling me that I need to pay $4,300 up front for this surgery to happen. They said that they will not do the surgery unless my dad forks out $4,300. Mind you, my dad is not a rich man. He quit the computer industry probably 20 years ago, and he has been working blue collar jobs ever since. He does not, nor do most of us, have $4,300 just poof like that. But basically, someone told him that that was going to be what he needed to pay for the surgery to even happen that day. And I just said, okay. I'm like, Dad, I'm still coming. Like, just sit tight. I'll be there. And I'm just on the phone and I'm calling people I know. I'm calling like my mom, who, by the way, is no longer married to my dad. But I call my mom and I just say, like, they're not going to do this surgery unless he actually pays them like $4,000. I don't know what else to do. And so I called back my dad as still I'm driving, right? Like I'm driving. I'm now about 45 minutes away and I'm just like, there's no way I am not going to see you. So I call my dad and I'm like, Dad, do you think you have any family that can help you? Like maybe your sister? And he's like, I can try. They basically say, yeah, no, we can't. So like my dad basically calls his sister, and my aunt is just basically like, yeah, no, like that's too much money, which of course it is. That's not many people have $4,400 that's just lying around. So I finally get to my dad. I find out where he is. I ask him to drop his location because thank God he has an iPhone. But I ask him to drop his location. I park my car, I find him. And by the time that I get into the clinic, I want to bitch someone out so hard. Everybody is so nice. Everybody's nice. From my last video, I went to something about her and I was like, okay, I have to get the t-shirt, like the infamous t-shirt that says "F me in this t-shirt." And it's like a graphic of like a girl like pulling apart a sandwich. I walk in, I'm sitting in the waiting room, I absolutely collapse, and I'm just like, I just want to see my dad. And one of the nurses comes out and she's just like, oh my God, I have that exact t-shirt. And I was like, you do? She's like, yes, something about her. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, did you actually go to the something about her? And I'm like, yes, girl, it was like the best sandwich I've ever had. And oh my God, I want to go back. I can already taste it. And then I'm just like, wait a minute, I should be mad at y'all. So basically they reason with me, and my dad finally comes out, because mind you, this is a clinic. This isn't the actual hospital. The hospital is next door. This is a clinic. The clinic is not the one saying that my dad has to pay $4,400 for the surgery to even happen today. The clinic is like, no, that's bull. Please keep us updated on that, because that was not supposed to happen. We did not know that he was going to be hit with that today. So I finally see my dad and I'm just like, what do we do, Dad? Like, your sister hasn't said anything. I'm like, I called my mom and she kind of just gave me a no. And my dad said, I don't know, son, I'm gonna go home. You can take me home. We can like just spend the day together, whatever. And he's like, but I do need to go pick up my ID. And I was like, where's your ID? And he said, it's in the surgery center, where they basically hit me with the whole, you need to pay us $4,300 for the surgery to actually happen today. He's like, I'm not going back in there. I'm not gonna deal with anybody in there. He's like, I would love if you could just actually go in there, say that you're my son, and get your ID. And I say, okay, go in. And I say, hello, I'm Ian Hammonds. My father is Floyd Hammonds. He left his ID in here. This was the least nicest person that I ended up dealing with this entire day. She's like, yeah, here's his ID. She's like, so he's not gonna do the surgery? And I was like, well, he doesn't have $4,300. And then she went from kind of approachable to kind to, well, that's just our policy. We can't do anything. That's just our policy. It's not me, it's our policy. And I'm thinking to myself, so I got her to write down the exact amount on a little sticky note. And I told my dad, I'm like, Dad, it's been taken care of. I'm like, don't ask any questions. Felt like a freaking mobster. I'm like, don't ask any questions. I'm like, the surgery has been taken care of. Mind you, this man, like I said, I have seen him cry. I can count on one hand how many times I have seen this man cry. And when he realized that the surgery was actually still going to happen that day, he started crying. Like, I could see tears running down his face and hitting his beard. But he started crying. He was so relieved that happened. So we go back up to surgery and they basically put him in the hospital bed. And you don't realize how much pain your parent or just friend or anybody that you know personally that you love is in until you see them in a hospital bed, you hear them groaning, you see their face wincing. My dad was so far in pain that all he was doing in the bed was moaning and groaning. I'm just basically sitting there like, what do I do with my hands? Sitting there, I'm like, do you need me to do anything? And he's like, no, I want to get this done and over with. And I'm like, okay. So they get him prepped for the surgery. I hug him as he like goes back. Like, he's literally on the hospital bed as they're wheeling him. And I hug him and then off he goes to get the surgery. So I'm sitting in the waiting room where the patient's families have to sit during surgery. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I am sleep deprived. I don't know if I should get something to eat. I don't know if I should take a nap. I don't know if I should do work. I don't know if I should answer emails. But I ended up actually just like falling asleep in this chair for probably 2 hours because I did not sleep well the night before at all. Finally, somebody who works at the hospital, I don't think it was the doctor, but I think it might have been the doctor, but a medical professional came out and said, your dad's doing great. He's out. They're wheeling him out. They're putting him into, like a post-op room, basically going over like what he needs. But they're like, he might have to come back for a second surgery. A second surgery. And I'm like, what do you mean a second surgery? And they're like, well, we don't know if we got all the cancer out. And I'm like, I had to beg, borrow, steal just for this surgery to be able to happen today. And y'all are telling me that he has to come back and potentially pay another $4,000. So I go, I collect myself, I find his room, and of course, he's completely out of it. When I tell you at this hospital, it is so hard to be mean to the staff, except the one that was like, you owe us $4,400 and it's not in my control. It's just our policy. Like, but everybody that helped was really nice. There was one nurse that came in to help my dad. Let's call her Kelly. Kelly could not have been nicer, and it's almost like she couldn't have been older than maybe 30. Just think like petite, probably was a cheerleader in high school, like just had like beautiful blonde hair that was like up in this very like classy looking bun. She could not have been sweeter. She could not have been more helpful. I still wanted answers. I was like, why does my dad need to come back and have another surgery? I'm like, is he going home today with another freaking catheter? And she's like, I honestly don't know, but we need to call the doctor. And I said, okay, let's call the doctor. So I talked to the doctor. She basically led me into this room down the hall that like you could obviously tell was like a doctor's actual office. Like it had like very like fancy looking bookshelves and like just a giant desk with like the leather chair behind it. Like you could tell this was a doctor. A doctor lives here. She gets the doctor on the phone and I talk to him and he's really nice once again. And he's like, I can't guarantee that the cancer is entirely gone. What we need to do is we need to do a scan on him next week to see how much is left. He said, because when we initially scanned him, most of his bladder had cancer in it. And I'm like, okay. So the doctor's like, what he needs to do early next week, like I'm talking Monday morning, he needs to come back. He needs to call. He needs to schedule an appointment to get his bladder scanned. And I said, okay. And so at that point, I'm just like numb. I'm just like, all right, here I am. I'm like, I'm going to have to start a GoFundMe. This man doesn't have insurance for some stupid reason, but that's a whole nother story. And here we are. So I go back and I tell both Kelly, the nurse, and my dad. And I say, Dad, you're going to have to come back. You're going to have to get scanned again. They're going to have to see how much cancer is still left in your bladder. The doctor is not entirely sure that he got all of it. I saw my dad kind of roll his eyes and go. So Nurse Kelly leaves and I'm just, just as shocked and just as exhausted as my dad is. Actually, my dad is way more shocked because he literally just got surgery. Transurethral surgery, might I add. Oof. But after about maybe 5 or 10 minutes, Nurse Kelly comes back. And again, just positive attitude, full of piss and vinegar. And she says, all right, I have good news. I just talked to the doctor again. And we're just like, finally some good news. Nurse Kelly is like, all right, he's going to try to ask you to pee without the catheter. And if you can pee without the catheter, we can send you home today. So they take the catheter out of my dad's urethra. As I'm there watching the whole thing, it's one of those like moments. But they take the catheter out of their urethra and they have my dad go use the bathroom because, every hospital room has like an adjoining bathroom to it. My dad goes and pees like he has never peed before. He sprays the entire bathroom. Mind you, it's post-surgery, so there is blood and urine spewing everywhere. There's like blood clots the size of golf balls Not literally, but like there is blood and urine sprayed all over the tile floor. And me and the nurse are just like, yay! Meanwhile, it looks like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So they get him back into bed, and Nurse Kelly is like, that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign. It might look a little messy in there, but it's a really good sign. And then later she's like, we're gonna just move you into another room because of the mess that my dad made. But it's fine. They move him into another room, and he goes pee again, and this time it's not as messy and it's not as brutal looking. There's blood, but there's not blood. So they say because you are peeing on your own, even though there is blood, that is a really good sign, and we are going to send you home. And if you somehow have any issues, or like if you suddenly can't pee again, come back to the emergency room. So as of now, I'm pretty sure my dad still has cancer. And as of now, I'm pretty sure that he's going to have to go back to surgery. Our family does not have the money to do a second surgery. So I am leaving a GoFundMe link below. I also have to admit that I am an only child. What they don't talk about in only children is that as you get older, your parents become your sole responsibility. Like in 2025, rent is expensive, student loans are expensive, car payments are expensive. I think we'll be okay, but if any of you are feeling #generous, I would greatly appreciate it. My dad would greatly appreciate it. And let's get him to a point where he is cancer-free. I just want my life back. I'm not too optimistic that he's cancer-free, but let's hope. Any money could help us right now. Like, none of us were prepared. I mean, who is ever prepared for a freaking cancer diagnosis that requires literally multiple surgeries? So yes, if you like my content and if you are just as unhinged as I am, please like, comment, share, and most of all, if we vibe, subscribe. Mwah.